Damn, you guys, Dededede is probably the best show of the year. I'm really loving it. Yo, I'm Buster Green, and yo, I can't believe more people haven't heard about the show. Apparently, it's got like no advertising budget in Japan, so it really doesn't have like a ton of merch like your usual shows. In the US, it's mostly flying under the wire and only really getting popular with people who bumped into it. So if you guys have no idea what I'm talking about, and you haven't checked or gone into the show, I am going to ask you to check out my first video I dropped about a month ago. That was basically a review of episode 6, but I also explained what the show was and why I like it. And otherwise, if you've already seen that, I'm going to get into some late stage major spoilers that will completely ruin the show if you watch this video. So yeah, please check out that first video if you're not familiar with the show. I'm very serious. This is the most and best written show of the year, and I think you'll be doing yourself a disservice if you just listen to me spoil it without actually catching up on the show. Okay, are you caught up? Let's get into this. Alright, so damn, Dededede 13 dropped the best plot twist of the show. Alright, now before I get into it, let me do a quick recap of where we're at, because the show is out of order and I've been reviewing it out of order, and I've been going pretty light on my coverage of this show. This is actually only the second video about Dededede I've made, and this episode is episode 13. Now, I previously only reviewed episode 6 of the show out of the vacuum, and episode 13 is the episode that actually comes after episode 6 in the timeline, because once again, the show is like very frustrating about revealing the details of things that happened out of order. Now, this is a really dense show, and so much has happened in this show that I can't even begin to cover it all, but here's some of the broad strokes that I remember. The aliens and the humans are coexisting in Japan, but failing at that and killing each other, and that is maybe an allegory for some kind of an immigration crisis somewhere. In episode 8, they introduced a new character to the show named Makoto, who is a trans girl. Was Makoto in the show before he was a trans girl? I'm not sure, but anyway, now she is a trans girl, and she has joined the main girl group and has become friends with all the main characters. Episode 12 was a pretty intense episode where all the girls basically reached adulthood and all awakened their sexualities and clarified that Kadode's awkward sexual romance with her former high school teacher was a bad thing, and also Antan is now dating a boy named Oba, who is actually an alien inside a deadish human body, and that's really complicated. Now, I'm a little bit unclear about how the alien possession in the show works. They explained it the most in episode 0, and from what I understand, it seems like, first off, a person has to be dead, but recently dead, like 24, 48 hours. And then the alien can take over that dead body, and the alien repairs the dead body, and the alien gets to control the body for a series of years. I'm going to say on average it seems to be about 10 years. Then the alien either leaves the body or gets killed, and the previous dead human being now comes back to life, but is kind of fucked up socially because 10 or 20 years have gone by, and the aliens have piloted them through a life that they probably didn't want to do. But hey, they had died before this, so hey, at least you're alive again. Congratulations. It seems like the aliens can only take over a person who's just died and whose body is in relatively a solid condition. So I'm not sure they could just like possess like a corpse if it was like chopped up or whatever. Anyway, despite that, it doesn't seem like the aliens are going out of their way to kill people though, even though they have this ability. They're strictly just taking possession of people who are already dead and lying in the street. Now, it's a pretty horrifying concept that the aliens can autopilot your body for a decade, and I think it plays into the show's weird themes of childhood versus adulthood versus how people are raised versus how they turn out. I wonder if they're going to play up the dramatic consequences of this a little more. Like, imagine you die and suddenly you wake up 10 years later and now you have kids and a wife with a person you've never met before. Or what if the alien makes you like live a life you totally wouldn't be okay with? What if the alien turns you into a serial killer and you murder your family? Or what if the alien gets you intensely fat, spending all your money on cheeseburgers, and then you come to and you're like too fat to exercise the weight off? Haha, Sonic 3 trailer. Now, I think episode 11 was mostly about the government cracking down on the aliens using drone warfare, and this further escalated the war of the aliens, making the aliens realize that they couldn't coexist with humans and getting them ready to commit a major genocide war thing. So episode 13 is the revelation of the big mystery of the show, and through some more random alien tech, Makoto and Oba view the backstory of the show. They view Altan's secret backstory with this like remote viewer time travel device that allows them to see a person's past and go into the past but not fuck with it. And I want to take a second here and explain to you guys what I had thought had happened up to now, what my theory was for the show. So they kind of established a couple of facts before this. The aliens had given Anton a drug that they said would make her more outgoing and stronger. And I thought, based on the fact that she does grow up to be an outgrowing and strong woman, I kind of expected she would have eventually taken this drug at some point in her life. But by all accounts, this episode clarified that she never took the drug, at least not yet. Unless I missed it, maybe it still will come up as a final sort of twist item that will turn her into like Brawly or whatever, but I don't think she actually needs it anymore. I think she's fine the way she is. Another major twist is what happened to Dededede, and holy fuck is that rough. Alright, so bullying is a big problem in the world, and it's a big problem in Japan. In Japan, they tried to make bullying like one of the main like social problems that they were trying to fix. And for the past like 20 or 10 years now, they've been trying to fix it and they've been getting nowhere with it. Now look, bullying is a problem everywhere, and I guess the problem plays out differently for people in different countries. Like, I feel like in America, if you get bullied too much, you're eventually going to have a psychotic break, you're going to say you're the Joker, and you're going to shoot up a bunch of people with an AR-15. But in Japan, chronic bullying usually results in the bullied person just killing themselves and going off to die somewhere. The bullying problem has never really been addressed properly in either country, but hey, Dededede is at least talking about it, and I guess that's better than nothing. So yeah, Dededede drops a major plot twist in episode 13, that the secret mechanic of the show was not time travel, it was not alternate universes, it was this weird mechanic involving alternate timelines. So recapping what happened in episode 6 again. Dededede, as a child in the Prime timeline, was pretty much bullied by pretty much everyone, even though she and Anton eventually became friends. There's this major pivot point that happens in the timeline, and these are kind of the opposite of like the canon events from the Spider-Verse. Like, the pivot points are just these massive collapse areas where the timeline can completely change from like a little butterfly effect. So the first big pivot point is that Dededede and Anton in the Prime timeline rescued this alien ambassador. He was the original alien, and he ended up becoming that Isobeyan alien because they put him in Isobeyan costume. And because of the fact that they rescued him, the timeline split here, and it was basically revealed that when Dededede and Anton saved him, he paid it forward, and he was like, yo, people here are cool, I'm gonna save the Earth. However, he also basically got Dededede killed by giving her and Anton his future technology, specifically the trademark Doctor Who sonic screwdriver. And yeah, so if you saw episode 6, the weird twist there was this dramatic reveal that eventually Prime Dededede became a serial killer using that sonic screwdriver to go on a non-stop killing spree, guided by her 10-year-old sense of morality. Ultimately, once she realized what she had done, she ended up killing herself, which is friggin' tragic. Now in episode 13, we finally see what happened to Prime Dededede after she killed herself, and it was really fucked up because the show had played it so vaguely here that I wasn't even sure if she actually had killed herself. And throwing out my theory here, what I thought had happened up to now was that somehow the Isobeyan alien and Dededede had fused together after her suicide, and that the Dededede we all know and love was actually the Isobeyan alien having grown up inside her for a decade, more or less becoming a healthier and more cooler adult version of her. But that's not actually the case. Prime Dededede did actually die, and she did never come back. Except she sort of did, and that's the big twist of episode 13. So what happens in episode 13 is the Isobeyan alien gives Anton this timeline rewinder device. And he explains that this is a device that allows Anton to send her brain back in time to a previous version of her body, but when she does this, it splits the timeline. So Anton is able to rewind her life by traveling to another timeline, and I guess she rewinds herself back between like 3 months to 2 years and restarts back at like the time the alien arrived on Earth. So now she has a new absolute fact in her brain, and this absolute fact is that if people bully Dededede, Dededede will commit suicide. Now, knowing this, Anton fully reconstituted her personality and became a more outgoing and crazy girl, to absolutely be Dededede's best friend, seemingly be a better friend than she was in the Prime timeline, and this creates the new wild Anton that we've seen in the show as an adult, and the one that everyone likes. Although knowing that she became this way out of the trauma of seeing Dededede's death is just sad, and I wonder if she's a little bit unhinged and a little bit traumatized for that. Either way, it did work, and by all accounts, Dededede and Anton did become best friends, and Anton did such a good job being her best friend that she fully fixed her. She got bullied less, she became cool, and she was able to relax and work through all her issues. It wasn't like the Prime timeline where she like threatened a bunch of people, killed a bunch of people, and eventually got drugged up and killed herself. However, a very bad twist occurs. So what happens is Anton was so focused on saving Dededede that their lives played out completely slightly differently. And because of these slight differences, they did not come in contact with the Isobeyan alien. Now, on the one hand, great, because when they got the tech from the Isobeyan alien, it led to Kadode's death. But actually, this is extremely bad because without Dededede saving him from like soccer hooligans, he died. And his death therefore led to the full invasion of the aliens that the show is completely based around. So holy shit, Anton literally sacrificed the human race just to make Dededede smile, just to make Dededede happy. And I kind of get it. The show makes it clear that Dededede was worth it. Like, based on how cool Dededede is, like, I kind of would have done the same thing, but maybe I would have also made an attempt to save the Isobeyan alien. So at this point, the show is teasing the world will end in 5 more days. And I know from episode 0 that it doesn't seem to literally be an apocalypse. It just seems to be the downfall of the human civilization and the world government. So I'm not too worried about that. You know, life will go on. We'll just like be an alien-ruled society. But I am worried that now Oba and Makoto know that Anton changed the timeline. I wonder if Oba wants Anton to unchange it, or maybe if it even can be changed again. Like, here's my guess at where they can go from here. I feel like the story can go in 3 directions. Either number 1, Oba unchanges the timeline and therefore re-kills Dededede but saves the human race. This would be a complete lose ending, so I don't want this. I want Dededede to be happy. The next guess is that maybe Anton can reset the timeline again. She can do like a Groundhog Day, and this time she can try to save Dededede and the Isobeyan alien together, with the only penalty being that she'll have to completely relive her childhood all over again and redo the last 10 years of her life. The third and most likely scenario, though, is maybe they won't fuck with the timeline anymore and they'll just leave it the way it is, and they'll keep playing out the alien invasion scenario. That's what I think they're going to do anyway, and that's kind of what I want them to do based on the teasers for where it's all culminating. I kind of just want them to keep going where they're going and not fuck with like time travel. Either way, I think 13 is probably one of the strongest episodes of the series from the numerous interpretations you can take away from it and the big message here. Now, on the other hand, I want to say this is probably one of the strongest and most beautiful anti-bullying messages in film I've ever seen, because it recontextualizes everything we saw in episode 6 and just makes it absolutely clear that Dededede was bullied into becoming a killer, and a better Anton was able to save Dededede. Now, it's pretty much cut and dry. Either Anton is Dededede's best friend, or Dededede becomes a serial killer and then offs her for itself. But damn, the more that it tells you that, like, the more I think that you really need to stand up for fucking people, and just, if someone's in trouble, you gotta help them. That's the right thing to do. If you don't do that, people will eventually get depressed and die. Honestly, the show can end right here for all I care. I kind of think by revealing this backstory of what happened with Dededede and Anton, I kind of think that is the show's climax, and it's an epic mic drop for episode 13 that I'm really satisfied with. But I guess I'm still invested in the show to see how they close out all the loose ends, and to see if they can put everything back in place with the alien invasion. Or rather, what fucked up society Japan will eventually collapse in when the alien invasion fully plays out. And for that matter, what sort of adults Dededede and Anton are ultimately going to become based on all the life choices they made in this show. By the way, I almost never say this, but I think I'm starting to feel inclined to seek out the Dededede manga on the basis that it contains the actual volumes of the Isobeyan manga inside it, and I kind of really want to read Isobeyan. Isobeyan is like really like appealing to me with its dirty female-oriented parody of Doraemon, and I think it's one of the best things to come out of the show. Honestly, if Isobeyan was its own manga after this, I would just buy Isobeyan, because this show has like also sold me on Isobeyan. All right, tell me what you guys think of Dededede. I think it's the show of the year. What do you guys think? If you're not watching this show, you're missing out. So good luck, good night, see you later, bye.